Assalamu alaikum, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to My Cave Podcast, the podcast where it's pretty much four guys sitting around a table talking about stuff. Which, is okay.
It's accurate.
Yeah. I'm joined as always by, to my right,
Atif.
And
Tim Hortons, Zaki.
And
Cher.
Yeah, Zaki has, I think the best track record of being the most awkward dude on the podcast. Why did you say Tim Hortons? That guy died a while ago.
Wow, yeah.
Well, his fourth ghost is here. I don't know. Look away.
Okay, anyway.
I want to look away.
And then do.
So, how y'all doing? How's your week been?
Doing good.
Yeah, I can't complain.
First week of school.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. First week of school, getting adjusted to that. So, alhamdulillah, made it through the first week.
Mm-hmm.
Did you cry? Any tears?
A few, but I don't want to admit to it.
Actually, this week is called syllabus week. Officially, not really. But it's just like when you get all your syllabuses and syllabi. You get your syllabi.
Plural.
And
Why did you pronounce syllabus so weird?
what? Me?
When you first said syllabus week, I thought you
Syllabus
said celibate week.
I said syllabuses.
Celibate week.
That's what I thought he said.
Oh my god. Syllabuses is not a real word. Syllabi. Syllabi, not syllabasi.
That's
Like, celibacy?
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Anyways. Yeah, so that's like everyone gets their syllabi and it's just read them and go home and that's it. So, and there's no labs and there's nothing. So it's like really chill.
It's like the best week.
The best weekend.
It is the best week.
Aaron, how was your back to school?
My back to school was great because I didn't have to go back to school.
Yeah.
Ever. No.
It's
Ever.
like we all talk about school and Aaron's just
Like, I
Living-
work.
living the dream.
Aaron's like, I'm done and successful, guys.
Guys, come on, guys. Like,
No, well, first week back at work was pretty good. There's always that kind of jet lag you get from, vacation lag, I guess you should call it, where, you're just trying to get back adjusted to getting back into your routine and everything like that.
you get more Lego?
I didn't actually, believe it or not. I have not bought a Lego set in a while.
No, you're Lego dealer.
Oh, my Lego dealer. No, the
Yeah.
new figurines haven't come out yet. It's
Oh.
only when those new, Lego minifigures series comes out, because, I think they're on, series 14 now, and
Dude.
so I have a guy at work. He is just as crazy about Lego as I am, right? And so when
Yeah, it is. It's perfect.
Oh, you guys heard that?
Yeah, I did. So whenever there's a new Lego minifigures series that comes out, he'll give me the little poster that has all the different minifigures on it, and I'll just
So you guys are best friends.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. And so I'll just check off whichever ones I want, and then he'll be like, okay, well, because he buys the whole boxes of them, right?
Oh, wow.
And he buys them by the box, and so he gives them out as gifts, usually to his grandkids and his kids and whatever. But he keeps quite a bit for himself. But then then I'll check them off, and whichever ones I want, he'll grab me the packs, and then I'll just pay him for them. So yeah,
Man, I wish I had someone like that for Pokemon cards. I wish.
We're getting really nerdy in this podcast.
I don't care.
Does it
It's
matter?
too
Does it
early.
matter?
Doesn't matter.
Does it matter?
We're 3 minutes in,
Atif, you're just as much of a nerd as
and
we
we've
are.
talked
Yeah,
about
Atif.
Lego and Pokemon.
Can you stop hating?
I like
Because
Pokemon.
Once you get to our age, you'll stop caring.
Lego, man.
I
was
do
never a
have my
big
respect for Pokemon. I did talk about it in one
Yes.
podcast.
There
Did you?
I did.
You like Pokemon as a kid?
I have a lot of respect for their marketing team.
A
lot.
Their marketing is actually quite
Like
brilliant.
like I said, I've never seen something like a fad take over the world like that.
Mhm.
Like when I was in grade 2, that was on every kid's mind. That's all there was.
It's on my mind, that's for sure.
It probably took crime down. People were too busy just trying to become the
I'm
best
pretty sure
Pokemon
grade 2
dealer.
kids were committing that many crimes.
I
at the
will.
time.
I will give my sob story. So in unsolicited, but I will. Can I?
Yeah, because I have one too. I have some stories.
Can you
as
make
well.
it quick, though?
Yes, it will be very quick. So when I was in grade, must have been 6 or 7, or I think 5. I had saved up, I think 600 or something Pokemon cards. Now that I look back at it, it was probably I think a majority of them were fake, but I didn't care. But yeah, so then I had those in this box, this rectangle box, and I kept it in my closet. And I used to come home after school every day and then just go through them and be like, hey, that's cool. I haven't seen that one yet. And then one day I come back from school and they're gone. And then I'm like, Mom, have you seen them? She's like, yeah, I threw them out. She threw the entire box out.
Oh, no.
So,
Do you still talk to your mom?
yeah, I do, but I keep reminding her about this. So, so she still keeps defending herself. She's like, yeah, well, this is my choice. So then after that, just to kind of I guess to revive the tradition, I started buying Pokemon cards again, and now I have like a full binder of like rare cards and stuff. So it was a happy ending.
I have a sob story that doesn't have a happy ending. It'll be quick.
Wow.
So. Okay. So Pokemon cards are generally divided into common, uncommon, rare, and rare holo. Okay. Rare holos are obviously like the most like the top ones. Then there's promo cards. Promo cards you can only get through like, certain events or certain things. For example, like the movies. When the Pokemon movies came out, they had like special edition Pokemon cards that they would give out at the movies. So this is how nerdy I was. I bought the Pokemon trading card game video game for the Game Boy. And I bought the Player's Guide because the Player's Guide came with a promotional holographic Venusaur card that you could only get through this Player's Guide.
I should have done that.
And so I had this like super, super rare card. And so I actually went to believe it or not, they actually had like a Pokemon like league like tournament.
League of Shadows?
Yeah, it's League of Shadows.
Ra's al Ghul.
Ra's al Ghul is like a huge Pokemon fan, did you know? Now we just talked about Batman. See?
But Batman's not nerdy.
Batman is
cool.
totally nerdy, okay? Anyway,
Share
off topic.
Our resident not nerd.
I'm not a resident on it.
He's wearing like gym clothes.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm going to the gym after. It makes sense.
None of us are, clearly.
But all of you guys are looking fresh.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So I got this like super rare card and I went to this Pokemon tournament at Toys R Us. And so after the battle and everything, like after the battles were done, I was trading with someone and someone had a Pokemon card of a Pokemon that hadn't been seen here yet. It was only in Japan. And it was a Japanese card. And I was like, whoa, this is like, because this was like back between like when you had Generation 1 and Generation 2 Pokemon. And like that weird in between where people were like discovering like when these new Pokemon that are coming out and they only have names in Japan, what are they going to be called here, whatever. So I had this super rare Venusaur card, and this kid had this Japanese card of a Pokemon I had never seen before. I'm like, dang, that's really, really cool. And so like I thought about it because he wanted to trade for my Venusaur, and eventually I did. And fast forward like 2 years later, it's a stupid it's a common Hoppip, which you get in like every pack of Pokemon cards. And so like I traded my super rare Venusaur card that you could only get through my Player's Guide for like the most common Pokemon that you could get in a year. So that's my sob story.
That card is probably worth like
a lot
now. I have a card in my collection that's worth $200. So cool. That's how these things appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of appreciation and hatred, nothing. The Lego set.
No, let's not go back.
Okay, fine.
Can we
progress? You're going back to Lego.
All right. Well, what's new? We haven't talked about current events just because nothing bad has happened that recently.
You know what's a current event? You guys were hating on me the last podcast, and I just want to give a shout out to Noor. He was like, "Oh, I gotta beat Zaki in Tajweed," and he hasn't shown up to a single class. So just shout out, Noor. I'm shouting you out.
Why doesn't Zaki make everything about himself?
Well, actually, I do have to give props to Zaki for this one because he started off as a student, was so good that he got promoted to a teacher within like a month. So that's props.
Good job, Dan.
Well,
okay.
So there you go.
Thank you, Cher.
You're welcome.
But like, what's going on current event wise? Because like, thankfully there hasn't been any mass shootings recently. This is great.
Yeah.
Well,
not that we know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of related to that was Obama's speech. On on gun control. Did you guys watch that?
I did not.
Well, he was the one where he was crying. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cool because a few podcasts ago we talked about gun control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and related is Oregon and the takeover.
Oregon.
No,
Oregon.
It's Oregon.
Anyway.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. But Oregon is.
Zaki, I get.
Okay, God, let me continue.
How could you do this, Aaron?
But Oregon, they had that takeover by these.
Oregon sounds like a Lord of the Rings character.
Yeah, Aragorn.
Anyway.
Okay, continue.
But that federal building in Oregon got taken over by these 150 militiamen. They call themselves. They're all white. And
you know what the hashtag was for them on Twitter? Vanilla ISIS.
Yeah.
That's good.
There's also there's a couple. There's like Y'all Qaeda.
Yeah,
what was the other one? Yihad. It was hilarious. I was looking at these hashtags
so
and I was crying. Can you say Oregon for me just 1 second, just so I know that I've reached out to you?
Oregon?
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a group of guys with guns who went to protest, called themselves militiamen, and we're just a bunch of crazy white folk.
I saw this title on Fox News, which was like, debate sparked, are these terrorists or patriots? I'm like, and then the next thing was like, the comic from, I think, the Family Guy. It's like a still from the thing. And it was like, the color shaders for paints, wall paints that you have. And it's like light colors, it's like patriots, and then dark colors, like terrorists. And it's like a guy holding up that comic to...
Yeah, color, like the color palettes?
Yeah.
It's like a cop holding it up to someone's face. And
I saw that on Family Guy, actually. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Family.
Yeah, they did the exact same joke. Yeah.
It was just a screenshot from the Family Guy, actually.
Yeah.
Obama's speech.
Well, so I just wanted to touch on that one really, really quick, because it's actually, for some, I studied speeches in school and stuff like that, and I think, his speech was actually really effective for a couple of reasons. And I think there's a lot of, little takeaways that you can get in learning how to, be a proper, Speaker, thank you. A couple things he did, which was really interesting, is that, first of all, he was actually not afraid to inject some humor into his speech, and he did it at really, really good times, right? He did it kind of at the beginning, and then things started getting really serious, and then he took a little moment to interject with some light humor, and then continue on. And it wasn't really, really abrasive humor or really in your face humor. It was just quick little things to kind of lighten the mood for a moment and then carry on. Another thing I thought was interesting, and this is the part that everyone talks about, was that he did start crying, right? And what some people, of course, Fox News is oh, well, obviously they're fake tears, and why wasn't he crying when San Bernardino? And it's he was crying because he was talking about grade oneers being shot and killed, right? Yeah. That's so what kind of robot do you have to be to make an argument against a person because of that?
On Fox News, is it a real fox telling the news?
What does the fox say?
Get
it? I'm asking you.
No.
Okay.
It seems that way.
I thought that was the appeal. We're yo, a fox is telling us what's going on in the world.
No.
Fox News is actually very popular. I think it's the most popular news source.
Well, foxes are known to be clever, though, right? So, I mean, that might be what they were going for.
Yeah, but Fox isn't clever. They're just stupid.
No, but I know. It's the total opposite. But
yeah, so then, so I think what was interesting from a speech perspective was that if you listen to that whole section where he starts talking about the grade oneers, I have a very, very good feeling that was off the cuff. That was unscripted. I don't think his speaking notes said insert tears here. Right, but I think because you can kind of tell when people are genuine about what they're talking about, and if they're passionate about it, right? I mean, if you listen to a lot of politicians speak, there are some times where you can be oh, they're just reading off the speaking notes and they're just hitting their key messages. But I thought what was effective about Obama's speech is I feel there were a couple times that he kind of wasn't afraid to go off the cuff and to just talk how he was feeling. Because I think, and what was interesting too, is that he made it clear up front that he's not doing this to win political points because he can't be reelected, right?
Yeah.
And so that's actually a very effective speech technique for disarming your audience, being I'm up here, I literally have nothing to lose. I'm just letting it out, right?
And that's that's quite refreshing, I feel, in politics, because you usually what happens with world leaders is that they just have a script in front of them and all they're doing is reading from it, and just looking up to the crowd a few times. But being genuine is a very rare quality amongst the presidents of the world and the prime ministers of the world.
Yeah.
I feel that our prime minister Trudeau does that quite well. And there's very few others I think who can do it that well. For example, I can't imagine Bush doing that at all.
Trump.
No, Trump.
Bernie Sanders, however.
Bernie Sanders, yeah.
Cool.
He can do it. He can do it quite well. I just feel that his age kind of works against him, because he just looks like angry old white man. And just shouting and waving his finger.
I think that's super cool, because usually angry old white man is your literal description of a Republican, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But Bernie Sanders is literally what a hippie looks like when they grow up. Because like Bernie Sanders has been like this for like years, like since the 70s. Like he's been like this liberal of a guy since like the 70s, which I think is like Bernie Sanders is like, I think like he's probably like one of my favorite politicians ever. Just because like he has no BS, just style of just saying things how they are. Like it's like Obama in his last year, but it's just him. His campaign is just, I don't even care. Like, why are things like this when they should be like this?
You know, like one of the things I was really impressed by that Bernie Sanders did is that there was, I think it was one instance where, what was it? It was like, I think at the Democratic debate where Hillary Clinton brought up the point that he had somehow like he had like researched into her past or something like that, and then he actually apologized like in front of like a live audience kind of thing. He's like, I apologize to Hillary about that, etc., etc. And I've never heard a politician do that, like apologize in an actual like election debate, because it's just unheard of. At least I haven't heard of it. So big props to him for that. And then just in terms of leadership qualities, that just shows genuineness when you actually apologize when you make a mistake. And he even said that we're fixing this, blah blah, like this. So. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Bernie Sanders could be a good prime minister over here in Canada. So it's time for our new Q&A session. Basically, we started a Q&A segment in the podcast, our email being mycavepodcast@gmail.com if you do want to send us any questions for future episodes. I think every question will be answered. I think that's pretty safe to say. So let's get right into it. The Codfather asks us, what's the hardest part of your dean? And we're going to start with Zaki.
Fishing?
Really? Really? All right,
He's
there you go.
the Godfather. Like
You blew it. Share.
You know what? To be honest, there's so many things that affect your dean that make it difficult. One thing that I'm really trying to focus on right now is when I'm actually out of the house, praying on time.
Yeah.
And that's been a really big struggle for me because, I mean, when you are at, for example, I don't know, West Edmonton Mall or something like that, your Adhan app goes off, everybody's looking at you. You know, it's showtime, right? But like...
Wait, really quick. You guys see that picture, like that meme?
That's actually what I was referring to. The funniest one is, who's that?
Yeah. There's like...
Oh, yeah.
There was one picture of like a bunch of people at a meeting. And
Bunch
then
of
it's,
white
like,
people.
and then the caption was like, when your Adhan app goes off at work. And then someone was like, should have hired John.
Yeah.
So like, are you going to do yoga now?
His food is always spicy. No, that was totally what was going through my mind when I said that too. But, that is something that I've really been trying to work on. And it seems to be the most difficult thing for me right now. Mm-hmm. But I honestly know that when I can be successful at it, it will shoot my dean, stronger. So, I'm still working on that. Once in a while, if I am out, I will, always bring the prayer mat with me. So that's one strategy that I have used to help me. But, inshallah, it's going to be a little road struggle. So inshallah, we'll see where we go.
I think with that's something that a lot of people, like everyone, kind of struggles with to some extent, right? I mean, even people like, if they say like, oh, just plan your day around your prayer and everything. Well, that you can do that, but that doesn't mean your day, the schedule for your day is going to follow everything perfectly, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, what do you do when like you're in the middle of like traffic and Dhuhr is about to run out? So like, what do you do then? So
I've seen pictures of cab drivers from New York. I actually have seen more than one picture where they would just like pull over the side of the road and they would actually pray on top of their cab. Yeah, because it's like wide enough and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they have no cares. Like they were just like kind of everyone's passing them on the road, and then someone obviously took a picture of it because it was so it looked a bit strange. So, I mean, really, I think it comes down to just a bit of like not caring and a bit of being brave. For example, I mean, for myself, when I'm at university, I usually just like there's 2 prayer rooms that I know of. I go there and pray. I try to go there and pray. But I know someone who would just like they would pray if there's a class. They would just come outside and pray in like the hallway, and just they carry like a small like those portable or the. What do you call those things? Like the prayer mats. I was gonna say like the Urdu word,
like
but
janamas.
Yeah, janamas, and then just like pop it in a corner in a corridor and like quickly pray and then go back to the class. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of like not like being all like, oh, what if someone sees me? Or what if someone sees you? Who cares? They'll ask you questions. Maybe they'll take a picture of you if they're weirdos. or or best case or worst case, I guess they would come and talk and ask you. And then that's your chance to talk to them about why you pray and why you're Muslim.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is the building the courage, right?
Yeah,
And,
It takes time.
it's the bravery and it's being courage, right? And that's courageous, and that's definitely what I need to work on.
I will say though, when you're in a shopping mall, thank God for change rooms.
Yes.
Aaron?
What's the hardest thing in my team? I think hardest thing for me is probably learning, seeking knowledge, right? So, and the problem, and that kind of stems back to like a problem I had a long time ago, where it was like, well, if one scholar says this and another scholar says that, and it's like, yeah, these different opinions, how do you reconcile that, right? And so because I never really had like a sheikh that I could like sit down and like talk with and learn from one person, I kind of learned from a bunch of different sources, right? And so that's always kind of been a struggle.
You have a Zeki sheikh.
I do have a Zeki sheikh.
Well.
Yeah. So I think just that aspect of learning and sort of like where to get your knowledge from can be a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Atif?
I think I have to agree with Cher on that one. I think prayer is really easy for me when I'm with a group of guys, because it kind of like you split that courage between all of you, and it's easier for you to handle it.
Tension's less focused.
Yeah, and like I don't know, like I've prayed in some pretty weird spots when I'm with people, but I can't do the same when I'm alone. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's like a courage thing, because really I don't really. Oh, I guess it is. I really don't know what it is, right?
No, but like, what do you think of when you're in that situation and then you're like, well, it's time to pray, and there's no like prayer room nearby? Like in that situation, what goes through your mind?
In that situation, I think I just make excuses like, oh, well, the floor is dirty and I don't want.
Is that really like? But that's the point where you have to, or later on, I guess, think about what really were you thinking at that time, and like what your actual, I guess, reservations were, and then that's how you
reservation.
I think that like once you're able to find the solution, then once you're able to find what's going through your head, you're able to find the solution. Because I'll be honest with you, straight up, when I'm in the shopping mall, the thing that's in my mind is there's gonna be 400 people that are walking beside me. Hey, what if somebody throws something at me?
Well, shopping mall is like a bit of a different.
But that's where I am the most. So that's the one that I need to find the solution for, right?
I'll tell you. Okay, we'll tell. I'll tell
you had your chance, fisherman.
Okay, fine.
I saw this post online that was like, "Hey, fun fact: if you see a Muslim person praying in public, don't walk in front of them." And then everyone like on the comments of it was like, "Wow, I didn't know this." I was like, I feel kind of bad that I could have told you this if you wanted to know. And like lots of people just don't know this. Like when you're praying, you shouldn't walk in front of people. I just want to share that because like we. Have you ever told someone that? Like when you're...
No, actually.
Exactly, right?
No.
You just think it's common knowledge, but it's not. And
it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And then like, I just read this post and it was like, hey, fun fact, don't walk in front of a person that's praying. And then like, all the comments were just full with, oh man, I feel so bad if I did that without knowing. I was like, wow, I could have told the world. That could have been me.
On a related note, in the news, there was this one Islamophobic idiot who was like...
Wow.
He put up bacon strips or like raw bacon, I guess, on the handles of a mosque, and then from that it was just like something went viral where people were like, "Oh, Muslims actually hate money. So if you give us money, we will just completely cut off from society." And then one was like coffee is our kryptonite or something. So the idea is that the Islam, like, they think that bacon is just like something that people like burns Muslim or something. I don't know. And
it's like a steak.
It's like and it's like just put it on the door handle so they can't open the mosque. Ha ha ha! I got them. But
they're not going to pray now.
They're not going to pray now.
It's an automatic door, man.
but like then the joke was that like they would just. The things that Muslims don't like is actually like that's what Islamophobes would give them, so that everyone's like, oh, I love coffee, or I hate coffee, I hate money, I hate jobs.
So
I think that could conclude our Q&A session.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you to the Codfather.
Yeah,
the Codfather.
That's an alias.
Yeah.
Let it be known.
has been totally made up, by the way. But so I am transitioning now
Great.
to the main topic, which is mental health.
Health of the mental.
Yes, we're all kind of mental in that regard. So,
Oh, I got a Batman reference here. Okay,
Looking at you.
okay,
is like,
anyway. So yeah, mental illness, mental health, mental well-being in general. I think that that's something that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot in the Muslim community. And part of that is because I just don't think people always know how to talk about it, which in all honesty is kind of normal for everyone. Like that's actually, it's a very big stigma in society in general. People really don't know how to talk about mental illness or mental health because it's kind of this like, it's a very deeply personal thing. Mm-hmm. Because when you're talking about like mental health, a lot of the times it's like reflective of yourself or reflective of people you know. And so, and in a way too, especially, and I'm going to be straight honest here, especially for men, it's kind of hard to open up about these types of things. Like, do guys really want to talk about the fact that they're depressed or they may have an eating disorder, right? So, just some like interesting stats that I found on mental illness. Like the chances of you having a mental illness in your lifetime is 1 in 5. And then it said that the most common mental illness in Canada are anxiety disorders, and that includes general anxieties, panic attacks, phobias, post-traumatic stress disorder, and OCD. And so, kind of opening the floor here, first of all, like what are your general thoughts on mental health, mental well-being, mental illness?
Well, I agree with you completely that it is definitely one of the topics that isn't talked about as much. Mm-hmm. If I relate it back to back home culture, just because we have talked about in the podcast back home culture quite a bit, I think mental health it's not necessarily not talked about because they don't want to, but it's just not seen as an issue.
Yeah.
For example, if you talk about mental illness in the form of like attention deficit disorders, a lot of parents and things like that, the back home culture, not generalizing, but a lot of them, because of lack of education, think it's just an excuse to not study, an excuse to not get something, an excuse for bad grades, right? So again, it's that lack of education. So that's kind of just my thoughts on that. Is it's not that people aren't necessarily only uncomfortable to talk about it, it's just they don't see it as a problem because it's a mental thing. It's not like, oh, you got a heart attack, or you have cancer.
You can see.
It's something that you can't. It's not something that you can necessarily see.
Yeah.
So people can't relate to it or put themselves in their shoes.
And something like mental health comes in like so many different shapes and sizes. I think that's why there's like that stigma to it. Just because like I can't talk about depression because I have no idea what depression is like.
Right, yeah.
So like when someone tells me, oh, I'm depressed, like, you know what's the worst thing? When someone tells you like they're depressed or like they're feeling depressed, and then another person says like, oh, everyone has bad days. Like that sentence, I've heard it so many times. And it's like the worst thing you could tell a depressed person.
Yeah.
It's almost degrading. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you brought up a good point there, and it's like what is mental illness, right? So mental illness, like it's kind of defined as like a balance of mental, emotional, and even spiritual health, right? And it can be affected by many things, including your relationships, your environment, your social situation, your work, like pretty much everything in your life contributes to your mental health, mental well-being, so on and so forth. So mental illness is like it's kind of like a disturbance in thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and when it becomes severe enough to affect your day-to-day life, that's when it becomes an issue. So some things that fall into the category of mental illness are things like schizophrenia, which is not actually the same as multiple personality disorder. That's actually a common misconception. Like people think Gollum has schizophrenia, right? Because he's got Gollum and Smeagol, but it's actually not.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings reference.
The weird looking dude.
Oh, that guy.
Aaron does a killer impression.
Yes, delicious.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I didn't think he was gonna do it. I just wanted to point it out. He does like the whole monologue.
Maybe
kind
one
of
day,
creeps
maybe
me
one
out.
day I'll do the whole monologue, but we'll see. So like that schizophrenia is actually when you see, smell, or hear things that aren't actually there. So it's almost like sensory hallucination in a way.
It's like Dr. Crane in Batman Begins. How he like gives everyone that hallucinogen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you start seeing things. But the thing, like the scary thing about schizophrenia, a side tangent, is that it can kind of trigger without any warning. And if it's like if you're genetically predisposed to having schizophrenia, things like extreme stress can trigger it. Like,
oh wow!
You might like wake up one day and suddenly you see the dogs talking to you, right? So that's the way my biology teacher put it, and it kind of freaked me out because it's like, oh god, what if I wake up one day and I have schizophrenia? But anyway, another common form of mental illness is depression, which is not the same as just being sad. I highly recommend everyone who's listening, if you want a very good perspective on depression, watch Andrew Solomon's TED Talk on depression, because he talks about a very, very severe case of depression that he went through, and he kind of outlines it, and he says that the interesting thing about depression is that the opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's actually vitality, because depression basically strips you of the will to live and the will to do things. And the thing about it too is that you know that it's ridiculous, like you know that depression doesn't make sense and that you should be feeling good, which is why like when someone is like clinically depressed and you're saying, oh, just look on the bright side and just think happy things, it's like, well, they're trying to, but even these like happy things and these like good things that you mentioned to them, it just doesn't get through. Like depression is like this weird barrier that comes up between you and like everything in your life, right? So
I mean, I like not to be, or just to kind of like bring it to terms that I can understand, like a very low level. Would it be kind of similar to, for example, like if I'm like or if I'm like sleeping, okay, and then it's like, for example, it's Fajr time, okay, and you get up and then you hear the alarm and you actually wake up, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's Fajr time, I should get up, and then you're just like lying in bed. And then you think to yourself, oh, I should really get up, and you just can't get up. And, you know, it just like, and this has happened to me so many times before, you just can't get up, and then you end up falling asleep again. And then you wake up, and then you're like, well, what the hell just happened?
That's a pretty good analogy, actually, if you take that and apply it to, like, everything in your life. Like eating, even. Like, if you're depressed, sometimes when people get depressed, like, they don't feel like eating anything. And so it's like, well, I know I'm hungry, and I know I should eat, but I don't have any vitality to do this. I have no drive to do this. And then you just go on suffering, basically.
What does vitality mean?
Well, vitality is the will, like willpower to do something, right? And so,
you know, when you feel excited and you want to do things and you're like, and you're in the zone, I guess the zone would be called like
depression is being out of the zone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's a good way. A couple of other quick things are bipolar disorder, which is where you basically swing from one extreme to the next in terms of like how you feel. So you can be like incredibly happy one moment, and then like something can trigger it, and then you'll be depressed. Anxiety disorders, which I just talked about, eating disorders, including anorexia and bulimia, and borderline personality disorder, which I mentioned.
So I just had a quick question and probably a clarification. So attention deficit disorders are not mental illness, but can lead to some of the other symptoms that can cause mental illness.
So what does things like ADHD fall under then?
ADHD actually falls under the autism spectrum, which
is
really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, any of those things can lead to depression, anxiety, and things like that, but it does fall under autism.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Exactly.
Wait, I have a question for Cher. We haven't heard a lot from you.
Okay.
What do you think about the whole, if you're feeling depressed, turn to God, you'll be fine? Or you're depressed because you don't have a close relationship with God. What do you think about that?
I think that's quite accurate, actually, to be honest with you. Obviously, like, I can only speak for myself in that situation. When I am in a position of tribulation or something like that, I do turn to God, and that is where I find satisfaction. Because usually when I'm in a state where, that I'm not close to God, my day is kind of all out of whack. I'm not praying on time, which means that I'm usually not getting anything else done on time. So, I mean, when I do turn to God, everything kind of generally falls into place for me, especially because with the prayers.
So I think this is interesting because we're usually all agreeing, but on this one I disagree with you.
Okay.
Right? So I think, like, to a certain extent, maybe like your life, because I don't think you're a depressed guy. You seem like You
Thanks,
got
man.
plenty of vitality.
Not at 8 in the morning, but yeah.
Wow. It's like, it's 9 now. Well, I think, like, people who are actually clinically depressed, like, actually, like, have this mental illness and are, like, borderline suicidal.
Yeah.
And then people will tell them, oh, you're not close enough with God. That's the problem. Like, turn to God, you'll be fine. So, like, in that situation, I think that's, like, a really bad thing to say to
Okay, I
someone.
thought you were referring to, like, what do I do in that situation?
Yeah, no. I'm not talking about. I'm not saying you said the wrong thing. Because
No.
In your situation, you're totally right. Right.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying, like, in total, like, a lot of people who are actually, like, depressed, and people will tell them, like, oh, you're not close enough with God. Like, as if, like, the thing I don't like about that situation is that they automatically think they know exactly what's going on without all the details, and that's what bugs me about that. Like,
No,
response
that's totally
to it,
fair
right?
response. I've actually had a lot of friends who actually drug addictions are considered, you know, like a psychological problem, right?
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of friends who have been severely addicted to cocaine.
Okay.
And I have went to ADAC with them and things like that, and I've seen kind of the method that they use, and I mean, there is no kind of mention of God, obviously, and things like that, but it's actually a very, very good structure that they have there. They have classes there that tell you kind of how you're feeling, and it's very realistic and things like that. But no, I suggest anybody who is feeling symptoms of any sort of mental illness to check out ADAC.
Yeah, no, and kind of touching on that too, like, I think the one that gets me the most is when people say, like, you know, oh, Muslims don't get depressed, right? You know, because there's this automatic assumption that because you're Muslim that you're somehow, like, immune to, you know, being sad or being upset about things, right? So, like, so for example, like, talking about even sadness and mental illness and whatnot, for myself, I've had to deal with mental illness in my life. I've had to deal with anxiety and depression, like bouts of that. And so, but I think that faith is something that can definitely add to helping someone to either cope with it or recover from it, right? But just saying, like, throwing everything under, like, oh, well, you're not praying enough, or you're not close enough to God, that's why you're depressed. Like, that's just kind of like lumping an assumption on someone and then thinking that, you know, that's kind of like the cure-all, right? I mean, of course, like, go ahead, Zaki.
Oh, I was just gonna say that that also does a big, like, huge disservice to the like your actual connection with God, because like Allah says that, like, you know, He's created, or in the Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah has created the illness and He has created the cure. So, I mean, mental illness is an illness. That's why it's called an illness, obviously. So then there is a cure for it. So you have to go and look for that cure, and, like, you know, in that, like, that in itself is like a command from the Prophet ﷺ. So I don't see why, like, you know, if you're not, I think it just, like, all boils down to the fact that people don't stay in their lanes, so to speak. And
damn,
what?
How do you stay in your lane?
I've heard that before. It's on my own. So
that's the title.
Don't credit me.
That's the title of the podcast. Stay in your lane.
Okay. Or Pokemon.
Or Oregon.
No,
Or Oregon. Or Oregon. Anyway, so the like, you know, people, like, you know, are especially you know, and I completely, you know, on the flip side, like, I sympathize with our imams. They have to deal with a lot of like, you know, stuff, and they're overworked, underpaid, sometimes not even paid, and, you know, just like, I can't even imagine, like, how it would be to be in that situation. But then at the same time, if they're not qualified to be giving, like, you know, actually certified by, like, a college or something, have a degree in that particular field, they shouldn't be talking about it, and they should be giving advice, like mental health advice, if they're not a mental health specialist.
Exactly. So mental health isn't a religion-based problem, right? So,
well, it could be, once again, just to clarify, it could be the fact that maybe you're just going through, like, a rough patch in your life, and, you know, there's like a fine line between that and actual clinical depression.
You see, that's
what imams need to recognize.
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning with the stigma. So, like, mental health has this huge umbrella where it could be like you're having a rough time, or not even a rough time. It just happens out of nowhere, or it could be something you've been struggling with your whole life.
Yeah, or it happens after the rough patch. But you know, there's signs.
Like, things are going amazing,
Yeah.
but you're depressed, right?
Yeah, I think kind of tying it back a little bit, there's a hadith and verse from the Quran that have always kind of like really stood out to me in dealing with mental illness. So the Prophet ﷺ said that no fatigue, nor disease, nor sorrow, nor sadness, nor hurt, nor distress befalls a Muslim, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but that Allah will expiate some of his sins for that. And then the verse from the Quran in Surah Baqarah, it says, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. And so these two have always kind of like helped me through like my own kind of issues with mental illness, particularly with accepting the fact that you have a mental illness, right? I think that was actually a bit of a hurdle for me because, you know, growing up as a teenager, I had severe anxiety issues, and I was always like, oh, well, when I grow up, I'll be better. I'll get over it, right? And then I was like 23, and I was like, I still have this issue. I don't think I'm going to grow out of it, right? And so, like, a big part of that was, first of all, just accepting the fact that I have a mental illness, right? I have anxiety disorders. I do get bouts of depression. Mm-hmm. And what really struck me about this hadith and this verse is that, you know, everyone's tested in their own ways, right? Like, everyone has things in their life that are going to be test them in ways that are like unique to them, right? So for someone who has like a mental illness, that might actually be like their test from Allah, right? Like, they may have like, alhamdulillah, like for me, for example, like, you know, I've been blessed with, you know, a good job and, you know, good health, so on and so forth, like good physical health. But at the same time too, I know that like my mental health now is kind of like my own test. It's like a test that I have to deal with from Allah, right? And so then how, like, do you guys know anyone who has had a mental illness, and have they ever like approached you about it?
Well, I don't know how I would classify it, mental illness or not, but the thing is that like one of my relatives, he's younger, and I think he has like a genetic disorder, so I'm not sure if that's like a mental illness or not, but like regardless, I mean, he's such a bright kid, but he's just like a bit different in certain ways, and you know, I mean, to share like how he's like as a kid, like he's still a kid. He's just like incredibly shy person, but then I can see him like when I try to make him smile and, you know, like joke with him and stuff. He's very sensitive to touch, so I don't touch him. But he always, like, I can see him turn away from me, but he's smiling when he's turning away. Yeah. So I mean, it's not like whenever you come across someone like that, like a kid like that, or just even an adult like that, there's actually an individual at the masjid here who's like that, and it's just like, you know, just be like how you are with every other person. They're just like normal people. It's not like you have to shun them or be like, oh, or be excessively, you know, like the other way, the opposite way.
Yeah, where you're just like,
it was like, oh, are you okay?
Little
yeah.
guy. It's just
and then the second grown man, like,
yeah.
like chill, man. But it just be normal to them. You see him, you say salam or say hi or whatever, and then you ask him like how his day was or how their day was, and then you just go about things that way. Just be their friend, and that's all. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can give to them as non-specialists in mental health or whatever.
I think it's just like I think everyone's been through like a rough patch or whatever, or like been sad, and like, do you guys get the same feeling when you're going through like a sad thing and people are like giving like this special kind of treatment, and you're kind of like weirded out by it, and you're like, please just treat me normal. I don't like this. Is that just me? Like, when I'm going through something and people are like, Atif, oh my god, like, how are you? Like, it's so weird. Like, I'm doing fine. Leave me alone. Like,
it also depends on like the person. Because,
it depends on your.
If you're one of the, and it goes back to like how well you know the person, is that if the person's personality is that they need support and stuff, right? Then to give them support, I think that's recommended, or that should be done.
I think that actually ties in with Aaron's thing
about
being a guy.
I don't like you anyway, so
like being a guy, like I don't know if this is like a weird thing to say, but like guys don't really express their feelings that much.
No,
this is an issue.
It's very true. Like, guys in general, they don't like to express feelings because
like the boys never get together to talk about like how much they cried last week.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you, like,
Do girls do that?
How much?
Oh yeah.
How would I know?
I'm
I
sure they
cried
do.
3 liters. Like I don't.
I measured it.
There's
Wow.
a measurement of tear. Like
That's another one.
I cried 3 liters. Wow. Nice. I cried 3.2. Get out of here.
it just become a competition for guys.
It's a fantasy league.
No, I actually like going back to the seerah. I think as the ideal man, the Prophet ﷺ, if you go back to how he used to act, right? There's not a lot of instances where in like hadith or in the seerah where it's actually depicted that he used to cry, but there are instances like it's not like it's not absent. So for example, the time when his son Ibrahim died, and then when he was walking to some place, I think, and then he took a detour to his mom's grave, and then that was a time when the Sahaba narrated that he started crying, and then his beard grew wet with tears. So, and this was in public in front of and all the Sahaba cried after him because they just wanted to do what he was doing, and this is just like
They wanted to do what he was doing?
yeah.
So he was crying.
So yeah, they started crying. No joke. So
That's love.
yeah.
No, that's exactly what it was.
Man, but that's the thing. Like he cried in public, so it's like not unknown. And in terms of other emotions that men don't show anymore, he used to used to take children. He used to kiss them, daughters, sons, whatever, whoever. And it was like a very.
I'll kiss a baby. I don't care.
No, I know, but like
I've been known to do
It doesn't
that.
even have to be
But
mine.
I know what you're getting at in the sense that it's showing like affection and emotion
or
is-
sadness or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just like so frowned upon. I get
I
it
don't,
that.
I don't think it's frowned upon. It's kind of weird. Like,
But it graduated from being frowned upon to weird, and now hopefully it's like going the other way where it's like.
well, I don't think
okay.
it's ever frowned upon where like a guy could be like,
What was frowned upon?
I'm not feeling good today, guys, and like, boo!
I think you're-
Look at this guy.
I
not
think you're too
feeling
young.
good.
I think
Yeah,
you're too young.
because okay, so in my own experience, a lot of it was that like with a lot of the friends that I had growing up, like they were great friends and everything, but it wasn't like you wouldn't get together with the guys and talk about like something that's upsetting you, right?
3 liters.
And that's I cried so much last night and so on, and like, but like it's not so much that it's not so much that I would feel that they would react negatively. I think it's just that it would just be like weird, and it's hard to explain, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
there's-
weird.
You would get that you would get judged, and that it would be like a
don't
really
even think-
uncomfortable.
It's
topic.
not judged. No.
Honestly, I could if I don't want to tell you guys about like if I'm sad, not because you guys aren't good like friends or like brothers or whatever. It's just weird. Like I don't want to talk about it. It's just.
I
know what I
almost
mean?
don't want to. I would almost just not want to put somebody through that, hearing
Yeah.
that. Like I'd be like disturbing them with my issues.
That's not even it for me. Like I could if I really needed to, I could tell you guys all about like the sadness.
And we'd
like-
listen.
yeah, you guys would totally listen. I'd probably get overwhelming support. But like that's so weird.
But
We'd
there's
bring you in
sometimes-
next week. You're a 3.3, bro.
But sometimes you need. There are like when you go through certain things in life, you have to talk. Like you just like it's a
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
and then but that's what I mean. Like when that situation comes up, the kind of or the culture, I guess, and alhamdulillah, it's changing. That you just don't talk to any guys with that. Like I mean, you don't talk to anyone with that. You're a man up, take it,
Well, I
keep it
think-
inside.
Yeah, and just in closing, because Ataf is giving me the closing time.
We're at like 48. This is our longest. Nah, we reached
No.
50 at one of them.
Yeah. But in closing, again tying it back to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like when his son died, he was sad and he was upset, but he kind of like, because he's an exemplar to us, he taught us how to kind of deal with it, right? He said that the eyes send their tears and the heart is saddened, but we do not say anything except that which pleases our Lord, right? And so like, even though you're going through like a really rough time, and even though like you're really sad and upset, turning to God will in the long run help you, right? And you can't like blame God really for what's happening to you, right? So I guess in wrapping up, like what are some quick ways you think we can like maintain like a positive mental health? For me, like I'll tie in first. For me, in all honesty, like prayer is actually really helpful, because prayer is like a time to kind of have like a one-on-one with God and kind of like ask for help, and it gives you also time to kind of slow things down, right?
What was the question?
Like, how can you maintain your mental health? Kind of?
So for me, I think there's never like a sad moment when I'm like with all the guys. So I think that would be my thing.
Surround
Like,
yourself.
Surround yourself
Yeah.
with like just
Good company.
with like good company. Yeah.
for sure.
It's hard to be. It's hard to be in a bad state of mind when there's just oozing positivity all around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd say like what has really helped me in the past, and like it just kind of like it's a positive feedback loop. The more you read Quran, just reading it. I mean, I understand a bit of it, but not a whole lot. So, but I just recite it if you just have like a constant, you recite it every night, and then you make sure that you're doing something to learn the book itself, the Quran. I think that goes a long way in helping you keep track of your priorities and help you in so many ways. And then just the fact that it adds so much barakah to your day and to your life, your entire life, that is just worth it.
So to end it off here, obviously reading Quran and praying are on my list as well. But I think setting goals and challenging yourself continuously is a great way as well to keep things in line.
Before we finish, just wanted to, talking about things that are, taboo or we were just mentioning that topic. I just wanted to give a shout out to this Facebook page called the Muslim Fertility Project. Just give it a like because it looks like it's something that's not talked about in the Muslim community. And
Say it one more time. You kind of mumbled it.
Oh, the Muslim Fertility Project. That's the name of the Facebook page.
Cool.
And it's just like right now it's just a survey. We're surveying Muslim women and struggling to have children. And I think like it's a great initiative. It's like first time that I've heard anything of this kind in the Muslim community. So
Yeah.
give it a like.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach.
And share it.
And one final thing too that I did want to plug is that if you are someone who's going through a mental illness or through depression or anything like that, like there's no shame in reaching out for help, because I think that that's something that is a barrier to a lot of people, is reaching out for help, whether it's professional help, whether it's even medical help. Like I know taking drugs for depression is kind of like a big taboo, but I do know people where it has actually been very, very effective. And so I think reaching out is definitely probably the best you can do.
But don't get too carried away, or you're gonna have to listen to last week's episode or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Substance abuse. We're tying it all together.
Wow.
So in closing, this is Aaron.
This is Atif.
This is Tim Hortons, Zaki.
This is Cher.
And this is My Cave Podcast. Thank you all for listening.
It's fine. Thanks for listening to today's episode of My Cave Podcast. Be sure to email us with any questions or comments, and they'll be featured on a Q&A segment of the show. That's mycavepodcast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at mycavepodcast. Thanks for listening, and Assalamu alaikum.